Welcome, the Lord's chosen. Pay attention, because when the room suddenly goes quiet and people start whispering your name like it's classified information, it's not paranoia, it's recognition. There's a strange moment that happens before the truth comes out. Conversations get shorter, smiles get tighter. Doors that used to be wide open start closing halfway. You walk in and nothing is said directly, but something has shifted. The energy feels different, not louder, not hostile, just careful, like people are adjusting their behavior without admitting why. And here's the part nobody talks about. Groups don't panic without a reason. Human beings are wired to conserve energy. Nobody gathers in corners, whispers strategies, or warns the others, unless they've identified a real variable they can't predict. History shows this clearly. Communities only react like that when someone shows traits they can't manipulate or categorize. When control fails, caution replaces confidence. That's when the rumors start. Not because you did something loud, but because you did something rare. You didn't fold. You didn't beg. You didn't break where they expected you to. While others reacted emotionally, you stayed steady. While others chased approval, you moved independently. While others tried to fit in, you quietly outgrew the entire environment. And without realizing it, you became the one person they couldn't figure out. And let's be honest for a second, nothing unsettles people more than someone they can't predict. If you were messy, dramatic, or desperate, they'd relax. That's easy to manage. They've seen that before. But calm strength, silent awareness, walking away like you don't need permission, that makes people uncomfortable in a very specific way. Because now they have to study you. And when people start studying you, it means they've already tried everything else. Somewhere behind the scenes, someone in their circle probably said something like, "Watch that one. Something's different." Not in a mystical movie trailer way, in a practical, almost annoyed way, like realizing the quiet student just outscored the entire class without looking stressed. No special effects, no announcement, just results. It's almost funny when you think about it. You're just living your life, minding your business, healing, improving, growing. And meanwhile, there's a whole committee somewhere acting like you're a group project they forgot to prepare for. Imagine that. You didn't even apply for the role and somehow you became the topic of discussion. That's what makes this story hit different. This isn't about fantasy. This isn't about hype. This is about pattern recognition. Because what they're reacting to isn't luck or coincidence. It's what you carry. The instincts, resilience, and psychological wiring shaped long before you even understood it. The kind of traits that don't come from motivational quotes or weekend seminars. The kind that come from surviving things quietly and learning fast. And once they realize those traits run deep, not temporary, not teachable, but rooted, that's when the whispers turn serious. Not admiration, not hatred, concern. Because now they know something uncomfortable. You're not someone they can script. And when a person can't be scripted, the whole system has to adjust. So if you've ever felt like people changed around you for no clear reason, like someone passed a memo you never saw, like you walked into rooms where the vibe suddenly felt managed, you're not imagining it. You're witnessing what happens when quiet strength makes noise without saying a word. And today, we're breaking down exactly why that happens, and why someone in their camp finally connected the dots about your bloodline, and why that realization made them nervous in a way they'll never admit out loud. Number one, your bloodline carries memory, not mythology. Let's strip away the fantasy and get real about this, because people love to turn the word bloodline into something mystical and dramatic, like it's about prophecy or magic. It's not. It's something much more practical and honestly much more unsettling. Your bloodline doesn't carry legends. It carries memory, not storybook memory, survival memory. Long before you were born, the people before you learned lessons the hard way. They learned who not to trust. They learned how to read a room fast. They learned how to survive betrayal, lack, pressure, and environments where one wrong move cost everything. And when you grow up around people like that, even if nobody sits you down and teaches you directly, you still absorb it. You inherit it in behavior, instincts, and reflexes. You don't think your way through danger. You sense it. You don't need long explanations to know someone's fake. You just feel the mismatch. You don't panic easily because somewhere deep inside, your system already knows how to function under stress. That's not personality. That's programming. While others were raised in comfort and learned how to be liked, you were shaped by tension and learned how to survive. That creates a completely different type of human being. You move differently. You decide faster. You trust slower. You watch more than you talk. And you don't even realize you're doing it. To you, it's normal. To them, it's intimidating. Because they can't teach what you have. They can copy confidence. They can fake charisma. But they can't fake instinct. They can't fake that quiet awareness you carry when you walk into a room and instantly clock who's insecure, who's pretending, and who's hiding something. That kind of perception doesn't come from books or trends. It comes from generations of people who couldn't afford to be naive. So when someone in their camp finally says, "There's something different about that one," what they're really noticing is this: you're operating with information they don't even know exists. You're not guessing your way through life. You're remembering your way through it. Number 2, you don't panic under pressure, and that terrifies manipulators. Most people don't realize how predictable they become the moment pressure hits. Raise your voice at them, rush them, threaten to leave, create a little chaos, and suddenly they start making bad decisions. They talk too much. They explain themselves. They agree to things they don't even believe in. Fear scrambles their thinking. And that's exactly how manipulation works. It feeds on panic. But you don't react like that. When things get tense, you don't speed up. You slow down. When others start spiraling, you get quiet. When everyone else is emotional, you're calculating. That difference throws people off more than you know. Because the truth is, pressure usually exposes weakness. With you, it exposes control. Somewhere in your life, or even before your life, stress wasn't optional. It wasn't a dramatic moment. It was normal. You didn't have the luxury of falling apart every time something went wrong. You had to think clearly, even when things hurt. You had to solve problems while tired, disappointed, or alone. So your nervous system adapted. It stopped treating pressure like an emergency and started treating it like information. Now, when someone tries to rush you or scare you into a reaction, nothing happens. No meltdown, no begging, no frantic explaining. Just a steady stare and a measured response. And manipulators hate that. They rely on emotional chaos to control the outcome. They need you flustered so they can lead the conversation. They need you afraid so you'll accept less. They need you desperate so you'll chase their approval. But when you stay calm, their tools stop working. It's like trying to light a fire on wet ground. That's when they start getting uncomfortable, because now they're the ones reacting. They raise the pressure, expecting you to crack. And you don't. You just observe. You wait. You choose carefully. That patience feels threatening. It makes them feel exposed, like their tricks are visible. And once someone realizes they can't shake you, can't rush you, can't scare you into submission, a hard truth settles in their mind. You're not controllable. And a person who can't be controlled can't be handled. Number 3, you question everything automatically. You don't just accept what you're told. You never have. Even as a kid, something in you hesitated before believing anything at face value. Not out of rebellion, not out of attitude. It was instinct. A quiet voice in your head always saying, "Look closer." So while other people hear words and move on, you study tone. You watch body language. You notice timing. You pay attention to what wasn't said just as much as what was. You don't only hear information, you analyze intention. And you do it so naturally, you don't even realize you're doing it. That's the part that unnerves people. Because most people run on autopilot. If someone sounds confident enough, they believe them. If a group agrees, they follow. If something looks official, they stop questioning. Life feels easier that way, less thinking, less resistance. But you don't have that switch. Your brain is wired to verify everything. Compliments, you check if they're genuine or strategic. Promises, you watch for consistency. Authority, you look for proof, not titles. Even love, you test actions, not words. Some people call that trust issues. It's not. It's pattern recognition. At some point in your life, you learned that words can lie, smiles can lie, even people close to you can lie. So you stopped outsourcing your judgment. You started relying on observation instead. And once you build that habit, there's no going back to blind trust. The problem is, dishonest people feel exposed around someone like you because you don't swallow their performance. They can feel you studying them. They notice you don't react fast. You don't get swept up emotionally. You don't nod along just to keep things smooth. You pause. You think. You ask small, precise questions that hit places they hoped you wouldn't look. It makes them nervous without you even trying. They start over-explaining, getting defensive, slipping up. Not because you attacked them, but because your awareness quietly dismantles their act, and that's when it clicks for them. You're not naive, you're not easily impressed, and you're definitely not programmable. You don't follow narratives, you investigate them. Number 4, you survived environments that should have emotionally crippled you. Some people fall apart over one bad year, one betrayal, one loss, one situation that didn't go their way. It throws off their whole identity. They need months to recover, sometimes years. And honestly, that's normal. Hard experiences shake most people to the core. But when people look at your life closely, they notice something that doesn't add up. You didn't just have one bad chapter. You had whole seasons that should have crushed you, situations where support was missing, times you had to figure things out alone, moments where you were misunderstood, blamed, overlooked, or treated like you were the problem when you weren't. Environments where love felt conditional and stability felt temporary, the kind of pressure that quietly eats at a person's confidence. The truth is, a lot of people wouldn't have made it through what you call just life. They would have shut down, gotten bitter, stopped trying. You didn't. You kept functioning. You kept thinking. You kept moving, even when you were tired, even when you were disappointed, even when nobody clapped for you. That's the part that confuses people, because survival usually leaves obvious damage. It leaves chaos, constant breakdowns, or emotional dependence. But you developed something else instead: control, self-reliance, awareness. You learned how to stand on your own feet because you had no other choice. So now when life gets heavy, you don't collapse, you adjust. When things hurt, you process and keep going. When people walk away, you don't chase. That level of emotional endurance isn't common. And it's not something you can fake or teach in a seminar. It's forged slowly, through repeated exposure to hardship. And here's the uncomfortable truth for the people watching you. If all that didn't break you, what exactly will? They realize they can't threaten you with the things that scare everyone else. Rejection doesn't scare you. Isolation doesn't scare you. Starting over doesn't scare you. You've already lived through worse. So now they're dealing with someone who has nothing fragile left to target. And a person with nothing fragile left is very hard to defeat. Number 5. You don't crave belonging the way others do. This is the one people struggle to understand about you, because it goes against how most humans are wired. Most people will tolerate almost anything just to feel included. They'll laugh at jokes they don't like, agree with things they don't believe, shrink their personality, and stay in spaces that drain them, all for the comfort of saying, "At least I'm not alone." Belonging is their safety net, but it was never yours. Somewhere along the way, you got used to standing by yourself, not in a dramatic, lonely way, just in a practical way. You learned early that depending too much on people can backfire, that groups switch up, that loyalty can be temporary, that applause fades fast. So instead of building your identity around being accepted, you built it around being solid on your own. Now you walk into rooms without that silent desperation most people carry. You're not scanning faces thinking, do they like me? You're thinking, does this place even fit me? That shift changes everything. Because when someone doesn't need approval, you can't control them with rejection. You can't threaten them with exclusion. You can't say, if you don't act right, we'll leave you out, because your brain immediately responds with, okay. And that okay unsettles people more than anger ever could. Most systems, friend groups, workplaces, families, even relationships, quietly rely on fear of abandonment to keep people in line. It's the invisible leash. Step out of line and you lose the group. That fear keeps people obedient, but the leash doesn't work on you. You've already been alone before. You survived it. You even grew in it. So walking away isn't a tragedy to you. It's an option. That's when their confidence drops, because now they realize they're not keeping you. You're choosing to stay. And the day you stop choosing, you'll leave without drama, without begging, without looking back. No speeches, no chaos, just gone. And nothing makes people more uneasy than someone who can detach that cleanly, because a person who doesn't fear being alone is a person nobody can trap. Number 6, you read power dynamics instantly. The moment you enter a space, your brain is already mapping it. Who's insecure? Who's pretending? Who leads and who follows? Who hides behind noise to cover weakness? You don't need introductions or explanations. You don't need cues from a conversation. You just see it. And that awareness changes everything about how you move and how others respond to you. Most people operate blindly. They assume everyone is as honest, confident, or straightforward as they are. They follow the loudest voice, the strongest personality, the visible leader. But the truth is, appearances rarely match reality. People spend their lives performing roles, pretending competence, hiding fear, masking jealousy, or amplifying control. And you pick up on it, automatically, effortlessly, without even trying. That skill didn't come from textbooks or motivational speeches. It came from needing to survive in environments where one misstep could be disastrous. It came from watching interactions carefully, noticing who thrives on manipulation and who folds under pressure. You've spent so much time observing behavior that it's second nature now. The unsettling part for others is how quietly you do it. You're not calling it out. You're not being obvious. You're just moving with precision, making decisions based on the real map of the room, while everyone else is still operating on assumptions. And people notice. Even if they don't understand it, they feel it. They feel eyes on them, but there's no accusation, just awareness. Manipulators, liars, and insecure people hate this. They hate it because they realize their tactics don't work on you. You already see the strings. You already know who's bluffing. You already know who's pretending authority. And once they know that, every interaction becomes a small panic. They can't play games without being seen. Every lie, every exaggeration, every hidden agenda becomes visible through your presence. Being able to read power dynamics isn't a trick. It's a built-in advantage that leaves others uncomfortable because they can't hide. They can't control. And when people realize someone sees through their act without saying a word, fear quietly replaces confidence. That's the quiet weight you carry, the awareness they can't escape and the calculation they can't predict. Number 7, your empathy has limits. You care, but you don't care blindly. You feel deeply, but you don't let feelings rule your decisions. Most people hear empathy and assume it means unlimited patience, endless forgiveness, or an obligation to tolerate everything. That's not you. You've learned the hard way that overgiving or overfeeling can destroy a person. You've watched people take advantage of kindness and manipulate compassion as a weakness. You don't make that mistake. Your empathy is selective, precise, and controlled. You understand suffering, betrayal, and mistakes, but you also understand boundaries. You give support where it's deserved, but you withdraw when lines are crossed. You don't chase approval or try to fix people who refuse to fix themselves. That's not coldness. It's survival. It's intelligence. It's knowing that your energy is finite and giving it to the wrong person can cost you more than just time. It can cost peace, growth, and clarity. People notice this because it's rare. Most manipulate kindness as a way to get leverage. They count on the fact that when someone is empathetic, they'll tolerate nonsense, excuses, or repeated disrespect. But with you, that doesn't work. Once someone crosses a line, you detach quickly, decisively, and without unnecessary drama. No begging, no long explanations, no emotional outbursts, just distance and recalibration. That switch is quiet, but its effect is explosive to those who rely on exploiting empathy. It unnerves people because they expect emotional overextension, and they're used to controlling situations where compassion can be exploited. With you, they discover that the same traits they counted on as levers simply don't exist. They can try manipulation, guilt, or emotional pressure, but you meet it with awareness, not reaction. You care? Yes, but you care wisely. And that level of emotional sovereignty leaves people unsure how to navigate around you. Your empathy is a tool, not a trap. It's an asset that grows from experience, not sentiment. And when people in your orbit realize that your compassion has a clear, unbreachable limit, it makes them uneasy. Because someone who feels deeply but cannot be controlled through emotions is someone they cannot predict, manipulate, or bend to their will. And that truth quietly changes the balance of every interaction you enter. Number 8, you don't perform weakness to make others comfortable. Most people shrink themselves to make the world easier to handle. They dim their personality, hide their intelligence, or pretend ignorance just to avoid conflict. They apologize for being too much, laugh at disrespectful jokes, and minimize their thoughts so no one feels threatened. It's a survival tactic for the insecure, a way to keep the peace by sacrificing authenticity. You don't do that. You don't minimize yourself for anyone, and that's what makes you quietly intimidating. You show up fully aware of who you are, what you know, and what you deserve. You don't dumb yourself down, soften your presence, or tone down your ideas to make others comfortable. You speak, act, and exist without apology. You occupy space naturally, without overthinking whether your confidence makes someone uneasy. This behavior makes manipulators nervous because it exposes them. People who rely on others, shrinking, faltering, or doubting themselves, lose their advantage with you. They can't push you into a corner or convince you to settle for less. They can't get you to play small. Every attempt to manipulate is met with the quiet, unwavering truth that you won't compromise your presence for someone else's comfort. The effect is subtle but powerful. Your calm refusal to perform weakness forces others to confront their own insecurities. They notice the difference immediately, even if they can't articulate it. Your authenticity doesn't scream, it registers. It sits in the room like a weight, highlighting their pretenses, their half-measures, and their attempts to manipulate perception. This is why people in your circle start whispering, assessing, and recalibrating around you. They realize you aren't performing, you aren't pretending. You are fully aware of your power, your boundaries, and your self-worth. That level of self-possession doesn't need validation. It doesn't need permission, and it doesn't bend under pressure. Being unapologetically yourself in a world that rewards compromise terrifies people more than any loud display of aggression. It's the quiet, steady, undeniable truth of your presence that makes them uncomfortable. You don't perform weakness. You don't pretend to be less than you are. And that refusal to perform is a kind of power most people haven't learned to respect or even understand. Number 9, you learn fast because you had to. Some people take years to figure out lessons that life handed to you in months. You didn't have the luxury of slow learning. Mistakes were costly. Missteps were expensive, sometimes emotionally, sometimes socially, sometimes in ways that left permanent marks. So your brain developed a speed most people don't even recognize. You absorb, process, and adjust almost automatically because survival demanded it. This ability didn't come from books or advice. It came from repeated exposure to situations where failure wasn't an option. You watched, you studied, you noticed patterns. You paid attention to behavior, timing, consequences. You didn't just survive mistakes, you dissected them, learned the underlying rules, and moved forward stronger and smarter. That makes your learning instinct instinctual. You don't just react, you anticipate. You adapt before most people even understand what's happening. That's what makes you quietly intimidating. People notice it without realizing why. You don't fumble through life. You don't need multiple attempts to understand someone's motives or a situation's danger. You observe, internalize, and execute with precision. Your decisions carry the weight of understanding that others take years to accumulate, and they sense it. Manipulators and insecure people hate that. They count on repetition, on mistakes, on people missing details, on emotional oversights. They rely on you being predictable, slow, or unprepared. But you're none of those things. You're alert. You're fast. You learn, adjust, and move forward without drama or noise. And when they try the same tactics they used on everyone else, they realize it doesn't work. You already know the rhythm of the game, and you've already prepared for it. Fast learning becomes a form of protection, a silent power. It allows you to navigate social dynamics, pressure, and challenges with a calm precision that feels impossible to manipulate. People notice it, sometimes subconsciously. They see you making decisions they would have stumbled on, handling situations they would have panicked through, and moving past challenges they'd still be stuck in. Your ability to learn quickly isn't just intelligence, it's survival honed into instinct. It's a quiet, relentless advantage that makes people uneasy without you even trying. They sense that you are always 3 steps ahead, not because you show off, but because you had no choice but to evolve that way. Number 10, you don't need validation to move. Most people live their lives waiting for permission. They want approval before taking a step, recognition before celebrating, or validation before trusting their own instincts. They hesitate, pause, and overthink, because the outside world has become their measuring stick. That dependency creates an invisible leash, and manipulators know exactly how to tug it. You don't operate that way. You act first and explain later, if at all. You make decisions without needing applause, without waiting for confirmation, and without seeking anyone's reassurance. You've lived long enough to understand that validation is optional, and it rarely guarantees alignment with reality. You've learned that approval often comes with hidden costs, compromise, obligation, or loss of autonomy. So you choose independence over comfort. That independence unnerves people, because they are used to controlling outcomes through praise, criticism, or emotional nudges. They expect reactions, flinches, defensiveness, overcompensation when someone tries to push boundaries. But you don't react the way they anticipate. You move according to your own measure. Your confidence doesn't shout. It doesn't need dramatic displays, it just exists, and it forces others to adjust their expectations. It's more than not needing praise. It's the freedom to prioritize your own growth, goals, and judgment above all else. You pursue opportunities, make bold decisions, and take risks without constantly checking how it lands with others. That level of self-sovereignty is disorienting for people who rely on influence and social pressure to maintain control. They realize quickly that the usual levers, guilt, flattery, fear, won't work on you. Your detachment from external validation also makes your presence magnetic and your impact subtle but undeniable. People notice results before they notice you, and by the time they connect the two, it's already too late to manipulate the outcome. You operate in a space where your confidence is your own, not borrowed from others' opinions. Not needing validation is quiet power in motion. It's the kind of presence that makes people uneasy because it cannot be bought, borrowed, or coerced. It shifts dynamics without words, without effort, and without spectacle. It's the freedom to act independently, and that freedom is something most people have never learned to respect or even comprehend. Number 11, you can sit in uncomfortable truths without denial. Most people avoid the harsh parts of reality. They cover them with excuses, distractions, or denial. They turn away from inconvenient truths because facing them is painful, and pain requires action or responsibility. Most live in a world of softened edges, comforting lies, and selective perception, and it works for them until it doesn't. You don't do that. You confront reality as it is, even when it stings. You don't sugarcoat situations to make them easier to digest. You don't twist facts to fit a narrative you want to believe. You observe what is true, acknowledge it, and make decisions based on that truth. That skill isn't common. Most people are trained to chase illusions because illusions are easier to live with, easier to control, and easier to explain to others. This ability makes you unsettling to the people around you because they rely on self-deception to navigate life. They expect others to believe what they say, to justify their actions, or to buy into comforting half-truths. But you don't. You see through it. You see motives, intentions, inconsistencies, and outcomes before they're admitted. You deal with situations as they are, not as people present them. That clarity makes manipulative people nervous because it exposes their hidden agendas without confrontation. Facing reality without flinching also gives you a strategic edge. You don't waste time on illusions. You adjust, adapt, and act where others hesitate, debate, or overthink. Your decisions aren't emotional reactions. They are calculated responses to facts, trends, and patterns that others fail to notice or deny. That makes your moves almost surgical in precision and timing. People sense this quietly. They notice how calmly you navigate chaos, betrayal, or pressure without becoming irrational or defensive. They notice you don't get stuck in blame, regret, or false hope. And that unnerves them because it highlights their own inability to cope with truth. You don't just endure reality, you use it. You transform it into understanding, strategy, and personal growth. Being able to sit in uncomfortable truths without denial is not a skill, it's a mindset. It's a level of awareness and resilience most people never reach, and when they encounter it, they feel exposed, small, and uncertain. That's the quiet weight you carry, the understanding that reality cannot be ignored and that you've already mastered it. Number 12. Your silence isn't empty, it's processing. Most people mistake silence for weakness, confusion, or fear. They see someone quiet and assume they've lost control or don't know what to say. That's the misconception that makes your presence quietly intimidating. Your silence isn't an absence. It's a tool. It's a pause, a recalibration, a quiet observation of the energy, the motives, and the truth around you. You don't rush to fill space with words just to prove anything. You listen, you watch, you feel, you analyze. Every expression, every tone, every micro movement becomes information. While others talk, react, or over-explain, you gather clarity. You let the room reveal itself while everyone else is too busy performing. That patience gives you a level of understanding most people never develop. You're not just observing, you're learning, calculating, and preparing your next move. Manipulative people and insecure individuals hate this. They rely on noise, arguments, distractions, pressure, drama to control the narrative. They count on impulsive reactions to manipulate, guilt, or provoke. When someone doesn't react immediately, they panic, they overcompensate, they reveal intentions they otherwise would have hidden. And because your silence isn't empty, every slip they make becomes visible to you. Your quiet doesn't feel passive. It has weight. It has influence. People can sense it even if they don't understand why. There's tension in the unspoken because they realize you're absorbing more than they expected. They're aware you're not just present, you're fully aware. And awareness that isn't easily shaken or distracted is a rare, unnerving power. Silence, in your case, isn't avoidance, it's preparation, it's strategy, it's self-control. While others waste energy over reaction, confusion, or dramatics, you are several steps ahead, moving only when clarity is complete. That makes your presence unpredictable, precise, and impossible to manipulate. People don't see what you're doing, but they feel the effect. Your silence speaks volumes without words because it's deliberate. It's evidence of understanding, patience, and mastery over chaos. And for anyone trying to control, deceive, or manipulate, that kind of silence is terrifying because it exposes them before you ever make a move. Number 13, you don't chase revenge, you outgrow people. Most people think revenge is about confrontation, shouting, or dramatic retaliation. They imagine payback as fireworks, public showdowns, or messy exposure. That's the shortcut everyone expects, but you operate differently. You don't waste energy on retribution. You don't track grudges like a scoreboard. You don't bend your life around someone else's misdeeds. Instead, you outgrow them. Outgrowing someone is quiet, effortless, and far more powerful than revenge. While they're hoping you'll react, you're evolving, you're improving, you're building skills, refining perspective, and expanding your life in ways they can't touch or control. The energy they wanted to provoke in you becomes your momentum. They wanted to trap you in anger, humiliation, or resentment, and instead, you used it to ascend. People notice the effect, even if they can't explain it. They expected chaos. They expected confrontation. They expected drama. Instead, they see growth. They see someone moving past every slight, every betrayal, and every obstacle without looking back. That's unsettling because it exposes the truth they can't admit. They weren't strong enough, clever enough, or meaningful enough to hold you back. Outgrowing people also rewrites the power dynamic silently. While revenge is loud and immediate, outgrowing is strategic and lasting. It leaves the other person behind emotionally, socially, and psychologically. They begin to feel irrelevant without realizing why. They notice your progress, your independence, your peace, and they can't counter it with the same tactics they used before. Every attempt to manipulate or provoke falls flat. Every expectation of control is nullified. That's why it's terrifying. You don't need to make them suffer. You don't need to make a scene. You simply elevate yourself. Your life becomes the proof of your strength. Your progress becomes the punishment, sharper and more enduring than anything they could have imagined. You don't chase revenge because you've realized it's unnecessary. You outgrow people, and nothing exposes weakness, guilt, or insecurity like someone leaving it behind without a backward glance. The quiet, unstoppable advancement of your life becomes the ultimate truth they can't contest. It's not anger or drama, it's evolution. Number 14. The real reason they fear your bloodline is simple. You cannot be programmed. What terrifies people the most isn't your strength, your intelligence, or even your resilience. It's the fact that you cannot be controlled. You cannot be taught to react in predictable ways. You cannot be shaped by their expectations, their lies, or their manipulations. While most people are molded by approval, fear, or pressure, you operate outside of that system entirely. That independence is rare, and it makes you invisible to their usual strategies, until you're standing in front of them, fully aware, and suddenly everything they counted on fails. Your choices are your own. Your thoughts are your own. Your actions follow your own logic and your own timing. You don't mimic what works for others. You don't copy success or blindly follow trends. You listen, observe, and decide. That kind of mental sovereignty is so rare that it's almost unnatural to those who rely on influence, manipulation, or social engineering to succeed. And when they realize you won't conform, that realization creates a deep, uneasy fear. It's not anger, it's concern. A quiet, internal panic that you are untouchable in ways they can't articulate. The unsettling truth is that people spend their lives trying to train others. They teach behaviors, instill obedience, push for conformity, and exploit weaknesses. They assume everyone reacts to the same incentives: praise, fear, love, guilt, or shame. But none of those levers work on you. You've learned through survival and experience that you answer only to reality, only to logic, and only to your own judgment. And that makes you unpredictable, uncontrollable, and impossible to anticipate. They see it slowly. At first it's just a feeling. Something is different. Then the evidence piles up. You move strategically. You speak precisely. You detach when necessary. You assert when necessary. And no one can explain how or why you operate this way. That's when their fear turns into respect, wrapped in anxiety. And their whispers begin, there's something about them, something different, something unshakable. What they're actually recognizing is that you are not a product of their system. You are not a reaction to their pressure. You are not a copy of what they expect. You cannot be programmed, and that is why your presence is a constant, unspoken threat. You exist outside their influence, and that independence terrifies more than any visible weapon ever could. The truth is, what makes you formidable isn't a single trait. It's the sum of all these qualities. The quiet strength, the clarity, the independence, the ability to read and adapt, the control over your own mind and emotions. You weren't shaped by comfort or ease. You were forged in pressure, in struggle, in experiences that should have broken most people. And yet here you are, whole, aware, and evolving. You don't seek validation. You don't chase approval. You don't perform weakness. You observe, you calculate, and you move forward with precision, leaving behind everything that doesn't serve your growth. People fear you not because you're loud, aggressive, or boastful. They fear you because you are unpredictable, sovereign, and untouchable in ways they cannot understand. Your bloodline isn't a story. It's a memory of survival, resilience, and awareness that flows through you naturally. The instincts, insights, and understanding you carry are invisible forces that others sense long before they can name them. They notice your calm under pressure, your refusal to be manipulated, your ability to rise above chaos and betrayal. Every move you make exposes how fragile they are, without you needing to act aggressively or prove anything. And that's the ultimate truth. Power isn't always about confrontation or display. True power is the ability to evolve past what limits most people, to outgrow manipulation, to make decisions from clarity rather than fear, and to exist in a way that cannot be programmed, predicted, or controlled. You are not just surviving. You are mastering life on your own terms, leaving those who underestimate you to scramble to understand what they cannot. That is the quiet but undeniable force that sets you apart. If this resonated with you, if you recognize even a fraction of yourself in these truths, don't let it stop here. Subscribe to the channel for more deep insights that show you who you really are. Hit that like button if you found value. Leave a comment to share your experience, and share this video with someone who needs to understand the power they carry. Every step you take toward understanding yourself amplifies your growth and your influence, and this is just the beginning of the journey. Stay blessed always.